Welcome into another episode of the Strength for Your Purpose podcast. Hope you all have had a great week. I know I have, coming at you here with another fantastic interview. We've been really lucky to be introduced to a lot of really great people recently, and I've been super excited to hop on all of these interviews, record them, learn about these folks, and then share it with you all. And tonight is no different. I just have the luxury of already knowing this person. So I'm really excited to bring what they are working on over to you all. So I was lucky. I'm joined this evening by Susan Raychard. I worked with her at a skilled and independent / assisted living facility in Portland here. So I got to really know and appreciate how great she is at what she does. And she started her practice before I started mine, but has actually been really helpful in what I've been doing. She was one of the first people I reached out to try to navigate the mobile world. So we'll get into that a little bit too. But before we really bring in Susan here, I just want to introduce her to you all. So Susan is a board certified occupational therapist and owner of Susan Raychard LLC, a private practice working with older adults in their homes. Susan has worked with the older adult community over the last 20 years and specializes in dementia care. She is passionate about educating families and local communities about dementia care. After completing her Masters of Occupational Therapy, Susan also received several certifications for dementia care and education, including PAC Trainer in the Teepa Snow Positive Approach to Care, and is a Certified Dementia Practitioner. Susan, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, like I said, you were very helpful. Actually, I think you were one of probably the first people that I reached out to with like some logistic type things I had for you as the whole mobile part of my practice kicked off.
Yeah.
So I got to thank you. I got to thank you for that too. But tell us a little bit more about your transformation from the sort of traditional settings that someone might think a person like yourself would work in, working with dementia care, and how you transitioned over to really specifically dementia care in people's homes and in people's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I found, working for years, I've always loved what I've done and worked with older adults for a very long time. But, the thing that was missing is being in their environment. So, working with somebody in a clinic and trying to assess their ability to, let's say, be able to make a meal and use a microwave versus what they could do in their own environment is very different. So just getting involved in people in their environment has made a huge difference for me. And I've always loved doing that. So my practice is mobile like yours. I see people and I work with them directly, and I also work with their families. Really work at trying to help people age in place, help them understand the disease process, no matter what is causing the dementia. But just give them tips and communication strategies and a little bit of that, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, and I found that with what I do, people tend to improve faster because we're working in their environment. And I'm not working with folks with dementia who have an active disease process going on. So you must see that at an even larger rate than I probably do, because the environment for those folks is that much more important, and the consistency and things like that.
Absolutely. Routine, structure, environment, those are all big things that play into the disease process and trying to help somebody maintain their highest level of function. There's no cure, and dementia is unfortunately a disease that's going to continue to progress. But if you can work with somebody and their family members, particularly, or their private caregivers, and setting up that environment and setting up their routine, you can really help sustain them for much longer than you would if they transition. And granted, some folks have to transition, and I do see people in an assisted living, which is still considered their home. But, again, the more you can work with them and their family and caregivers, even in assisted livings, when I visit them, you can still help them sustain that maximum level of independence for longer.
Yeah. And I think with something like that, you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's the key, right? Like, stay where you're at as long as your disease process will let you, right?
Yep.
And the family and the caregivers are probably would you say that might be the most crucial part of that? Like, obviously the interventions you do with the people that you're helping, the consistency, the simplified strategies that are going to help those people thrive, even considering what they're dealing with their function, both mentally and physically. But would you say the family member education is just as important, if not more important, in those situations?
Definitely more important in a lot of situations. Communication is the one thing that really affects everything.
Mm,
And I work a lot with the family members and helping them understand as the disease progresses how you have to communicate with your loved one differently.
mhm.
And it's up to the caregiver and the family member to change, because a person living with dementia, they can't change.
Sure.
They can't bring all those skills back. Their brain is dying, and this is where they're at. So, yes, it is probably the number one most important thing I do is work with the people around them to help them have the best day and the best quality of life possible by learning how to communicate differently,
Mm,
and learning how to help them through these times where there's frustration and agitation because they just can't get the words out that they used to get out, or they don't know how to do a task that they used to do. So it
mm.
doesn't mean they can't still do things, but I have to really work with them on how to break it down and show them different strategies.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Do you also offer some things to people, specifically to the family members and caregivers, that can maybe help them cope with a little bit of it as well? Like, is that because I would imagine that as a caregiver or family member of someone who is going through that, you have to help yourself a little bit
Yeah, you
in
do.
order to help those people at the highest level possible.
Absolutely, because it is a very exhausting process and it's
Mm,
24/7. So so my clients that I see, I bill most insurance,
mm,
Medicare and all your other major insurance plans. But I also offer private pay options for specifically for caregivers, whether it's a family member, whether it's private caregivers. I do a lot of consultations over Zoom. Sometimes I'll go into facilities and I'll do some training of care staff.
mhm.
But yeah, absolutely, I offer that, and it's a big part of it for somebody to be able to have the support they need. Their caregivers really do need a lot of support as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Especially where, as you said, that caregiver education for what you're seeing the person with dementia for being probably the most important part of what you do, even with that person. Um, Having the extra support that those caregivers need
Yeah.
is super, super crucial. Um, what are some of the big things that sort of stand out to you that all of these folks kind of tend to have in common that lead to them knowing that they would need specifically your occupational therapy services, like from your scope, for their family member, their loved one, their spouse, whatever the case might be? Like, what are the things that people might see that would indicate that you're the right person for them?
Yeah, absolutely. In the earliest stages, folks are going to start seeing things where, whether it's a spouse or a mom or a dad, that they're struggling with everyday things. Like maybe they're noticing they're not taking their pills correctly, or maybe they're not taking them at all. Some bills maybe not getting paid. So some of those like higher level things that we all take for granted every day become a real struggle. And those are the first kind of things that they start to see.
Mm,
Driving is another thing where they might notice that, maybe they're getting lost or
mm,
missing appointments. Those are big ones that'll come out. Some folks can get through those first stages and they're able to manage it.
mm,
Beyond that, then it starts to go into other things where I get a lot of phone calls where mom or dad or my husband or my wife, they're not bathing anymore. They
mm,
won't take a shower. They haven't changed their clothes in weeks. I don't know what to do. That's a real big concern for a lot of people. It's
mm,
an embarrassing situation for the caregiver because they don't know how to handle that. They don't want to take their spouse out in public, unkept and
mm,
not changing their clothes, and they don't really know what to do with that. And there's a lot of fighting and kind of butting heads going on,
mm.
trying to get them to do these things. So those are some big ones that I see. And sometimes it is they need to get somebody to stop driving. And so I
Yeah.
do some assessments that I can't take their license away, but I will make recommendations to the doctor who can do that. And
Mm,
then the strategies of how do we help them move beyond driving?
yeah.
What's the next step? So that's another big one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and actually, in saying that, I guess we might even want to back up a little bit further, because I think a lot of people probably don't know that occupational therapists can work in like an outpatient setting, like
Yeah.
you're talking about. So So talk a little bit about, this is kind of one step back from what we just mentioned, like what is occupational therapy really focusing on, even just in an outpatient setting, not just specific to folks with dementia and the loved ones and caregivers that help them.
Right. I mean, occupational therapy is all about we call them ADLs and IADLs. So what does that mean? So, your ability to basically take care of everything you need each day, whether it's you're getting washed and dressed, or eating, preparing a meal, paying your bills, driving your car. We really address everything. We look at it as a whole, at the whole person. So we are going to look at what's creating the deficit. Why can't you complete these tasks? Whether it's a disease process like dementia, whether somebody's had a stroke. There's various reasons that happen in life that somebody can't perform all these different activities that we do on a daily basis. So in a clinic setting, or in a rehab setting, OTs will do all this. And we have, a lot of things set up that are simulate, like there's a kitchen, usually there's a bathroom that you can practice with. And then when you can take a mobile outpatient like myself, where I go into the home, you're going to work with the stuff they already have in place, their own kitchen, their own bathroom. You may modify stuff and make recommendations, but it's much easier in their own environment. But we look at the whole person, and I do a lot with the cognitive stuff as well. A lot of people think that speech therapy is all cognitive, and OTs, are more bathing and dressing, but OTs do a lot with cognition. We look at functional cognition, because you can't do anything without this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we look at a lot of, planning, processing, attention, all those things that affect somebody's ability to complete a task. Dementia, unfortunately, attacks all of that. So
yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, because again, you're the certified provider here, but in my experiences, specifically working with some of the folks that we worked with together when we worked together for a period of time, that to me seemed to be the thing that, regardless of whether it was dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever the disease was classified with, every single person I saw that was working with that, those things, the cognition part, the planning, the affect, things like that, were the things that were probably the most affected for those people, and usually affected first. Is that pretty accurate to say?
yeah, absolutely. We think about a lot of dementia attacks the front part of the brain first. And these are things like problem solving, planning, sequencing, judgment, safety awareness, empathy, like the ability to see, somebody else's point of view. These are all things that happen pretty early on in disease. And it has family members questioning, what's going on with this person before they get a diagnosis. So yeah. And so when you look at what we do every day, those are things that really play an important role in these different things that we want to do, whether it's, like I said, paying our bills, but even getting dressed and changing your clothes. It requires the ability to plan, the ability to sequence. And so it doesn't mean they can't participate in that stuff. When those deficits come, it doesn't mean they still can't do these things. They're just going to do them differently. We're going to show them compensatory strategies and techniques. And I teach a lot of the caregivers on how to then take those techniques and use them with their loved ones with dementia, so that they can maintain as much independence and participate in their activities, give them purpose, and keep their quality of life.
Well, and it's really great that you bring up this cognition aspect, their affect, their empathy, their planning, because I think a lot of people, I'm actually thinking of some of my own family right now as we talk about this. I think a lot of people will chalk some of that stuff up as, oh, they're just getting old and don't give a crap anymore.
Right.
Or they just don't quite understand that they can't do that anymore, and it frustrates them. So they kind of chalk it up to just things that accompany old age from a psychological aspect. Like
absolutely.
The psychological aspect of aging is not matching up with the physical aspects of aging for that person. And they think that that's normal, but it might be signs of something that's actually more of a disease process that started.
Absolutely.
So it's worth looking into. Can that disease process be picked up that early on, when just those things are the problem? Like maybe even the specifics of like not paying bills on time haven't happened yet, but some of the changes emotionally and cognitively have already started happening. Can Can that disease process be picked up at that point?
It can, and for loved ones that are paying attention to some of these changes, getting somebody in for a physical and a checkup with their doctor is really critical. Medicare does these annual wellness exams anyway. They're not as thorough as some of the assessments that I would do, but they look at cognition to see if anything kind of is triggered, and then if there is, they go deeper than that. But it's enough to at least get things looked at. And I think it's important for family members, if you are seeing changes, to start, questioning it. It's something I also do. I'm often called in because things have changed, and
Mm,
I'll do assessments. Now, I'm not gonna diagnose dementia, but
sure.
what I will do is do these assessments that show something has changed. And there's many things that can cause like a pseudo dementia. There's things like,
Mhm.
a imbalance in the body, a vitamin deficiency, medication changes. Things can change and can cause symptoms that look like dementia. So
Mm,
I can do the assessments and say, this is what I'm seeing, send that off to the doctor's office. Then they can go from there, potentially get them set up with a neurologist. They often will do an MRI to kind of look to see if there's any changes going on, in the brain that will show that there's some early dementia that's starting,
mm.
or if it's something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And picking up on those things early is always going to be, I always say it's never too soon and it's never too late to get the help for these things and to
Absolutely.
figure them out. But whether it's from more of the planning and the compensation and the new strategies that have to take place, even starting when there's aren't a lot of deficits, might help everybody just understand the whole process. So I think it's great
Mhm.
that someone could work with someone like you while the diagnosis process is also happening, uh,
Yep.
because they can have the resources at their fingertips. And the biggest thing I see, and I know you're going to agree with this and see this too, when people are working with a provider like yourself and working with other specialists like a neurologist, their PCP and whatnot, those folks aren't as easy to get a hold of as someone like you are, right? So
Wow, it's
so
true. It's
so
true.
even just having that resource of being able to, like, if I text or call Susan, she's going to get back to me probably the same day.
Right.
Not I'm not going to have to play phone tag and, and
Yeah.
and hope messages are getting seen. So the even when things aren't at a place where, oh, things have regressed, I'm sure that's a great point to just get started then.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely, like you said, as far as the communication and being able to reach out to your providers, it is one of the things that I do enjoy very much about my practice. They have my personal cell phone number is what they have. They
Yeah.
can text me, they can call me, and they're going to get me. And it's not that their doctors wouldn't want to be there for them. If their
Mm,
doctors are, it's just a different setup.
yeah.
This is my practice, like you have your practice. We have the ability to make those decisions and
Mm,
provide that type of service, which is, I know that my clients really feel more comforted knowing they can reach out when they need somebody.
yeah. 100%. No, that's fantastic. Um, no, that's great. What are so we talked a little bit about the signs that people might be that people might be seeing. What does the process look like maybe when someone is getting to a point where, they're plateauing, right? Are there things that you can continue to do even outside of when the improvements are no longer going to be significant enough?
Mm-hmm.
Is there ongoing care that you can be doing sort of outside of the heavier frequency care with these folks and with their family members that's maybe even outside the scope of that
Yeah,
insurance? I'm basically dancing around with
absolutely.
Susan, I'm basically dancing around when insurance tells people like us that know more about this stuff than they do, that we can't see them anymore. Can you still help me?
Right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So there is paperwork that we can fill out, when we say
Mhm.
we've reached a certain level, and Medicare is saying what we're doing now won't be covered, and you can set all that stuff up. And there's a lot of folks that will do private pay for things that aren't covered by Medicare, and absolutely, I'm always available for that. And like I said, when I do the private consultations for family, I can't bill Medicare for that anyway. That's not
Right,
allowable, but it
right.
doesn't mean I can't provide the service. So yeah, it's a great question, and a lot of people don't realize that is available to them, that you
Yeah.
don't have to go without the services.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something that is becoming a little bit more popular. And that's really the reason I bring it up, is because it is something that more people are willing to do. because they're just getting fed up with people, with their loved ones, not with people, but with their loved ones getting better and then regressing right back to square one, and getting
Right.
better and regressing right back to square one. And there are providers out there who are able and willing, who aren't afraid to take advantage of the fact that we don't have to just play by the insurance company's rules all the time to get you the help that you desperately need. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
it's an extension of that great resource you already offer people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, like I said, there's a lot of folks that can benefit from services, even when Medicare no longer covers it, there's a lot of things that can still be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, maybe the more of that happens out there in the medical field, that the programs will come around. maybe,
Agreed.
maybe they'll start. We gotta keep fighting the good fight, Susan, because maybe
Yeah.
they'll figure it out someday.
Well, it saves money in the long run. It keeps them out of the hospital when they have therapy. It makes a big difference. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Fantastic. So I've got a couple more questions for you, Susan, but before we get to those last couple of questions, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell people how they can find you and learn more about you.
Sure, absolutely. I do have a website, and I also have a direct phone number. So my direct phone number, it would be 207-298-0071. If you want to check out some of my services, you can go to my website, and that is Susan Raychard, SusanRaychard -LLC.com. A lot more information on there. I just ask folks not to send any private medical record information through email to me. I'd rather have you reach out to me first by phone call. And I usually can schedule out with people. I typically save some appointments and usually can get to see people within a week to a week and a half at the most. So
Great.
pretty good at being able to get in to see somebody quickly.
Yeah. Fantastic. And we'll make sure we have that email and phone number right in the show notes for everybody who is listening or watching and wants to learn more about this for themselves, for their loved ones, for family members, in-laws, friends, whoever might benefit from having that information at their fingertips and those resources at their fingertips. So last couple of questions here, Susan. These are questions I ask every guest that comes on the podcast, and I'm really excited to hear your answers. The first one is what is your definition of strength?
Strength. Wow. Put me right on the spot.
Yeah.
So strength as in a physical or strength as in an emotional?
However you would describe strength.
Okay. I think we can look at it from either angle. Obviously, strength as physical would be just having the ability to do the things that we want to do in life, be able to get to from one point A to point B, I guess would be a way to look at it. Strength emotionally, being able to have tools in place to support yourself and take care of yourself emotionally to, again, do the things you want to do and be there for the people you love.
Yeah.
How's that?
That was perfect. Well, and the thing I love about it, and I didn't really mention this in our conversation, but it's a point that I was hoping I could sort of bring up. I think that's a perfect occupational therapy answer for that question, because what I've always loved most about working with you and with people that are good occupational therapists is being able to bounce things off of each other, because we as PTs are very much the physical side of those tasks. Like we know how to optimize the body to function within those tasks and make them easier. And we can provide some of those compensations and different, workarounds as well. But that's really your expertise. You also have that physical, a bit of that physical knowledge, but you mesh it with the mental and emotional side of things. And that's where, we, the mental emotional is your wheelhouse. The all things all encompassing physical is our wheelhouse, and then we blend somewhere in the middle there.
And we do blend well together.
And definitely. There's a reason why a lot of facilities that work with a lot of folks that you work with have both of those people in place, because we need each other to maximize those people's function. So I just had to say that is like the best OT answer ever, and that's why I love it. So the last question I have for you, I think should be a little easier, even though I'm putting you on the spot here. I think this will be as daunting of a task for you.
Okay.
What is your true purpose in life, Susan?
That's a good one. For me is to help, first of all, to be the best person I can be, of course, and to continue to develop myself and to be there for my family.
Mm.
As far as my career goes, I've really committed and I'm very passionate about helping the people that are living with a disease process, dementia, helping them be able to do all they can do, helping recognize that they're still there, that all the things that they can still do. There's so many times we focus on what they can't do. Really want to help focus on what they can do. So my passion in life is really to help them continue to shine and to help the people around them to see what's left so that they can continue to love them and be okay with the difficult process that's happening, and it's a rough one for sure.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, it truly does take a very special person to be passionate about those folks. And it's not that those of us that don't work with them don't care enough to work with them.
Right.
I really do think that the connection that individuals have with those people, there are certain people that are just meant to work with those folks at a high level. All of us in the therapy world really could do it, but the ones that have you're just built different, Susan. I think that's the best way to put it, is some people are just meant to do it and others just aren't. And it's not because people don't want to, it's really more of something that's probably beyond our control. I think they're just people that just connect at a deeper level with folks that are going through that and their families. And I think you're just one of those people. I think you were just put here in this spot to do that. And I applaud you for living out that true purpose. That's fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you. I think we're all drawn to we're all drawn to something, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't do pediatrics.
Exactly. Well,
there's a reason.
That's another very special group of people.
Right.
I think people that do what you do and people that do pediatrics are probably the two best examples of people were put on this earth for a specific reason. Those are the two groups of people for sure. Awesome. Well, I encourage everybody to go check out Susan's website, see what she has to offer. All that information is in our show notes here. If you or someone is going through this, or you have a family member, a loved one, or you have friends that have family members that are going through this, there is more help out there. These folks don't just have to go through the motions and wait until they move into the next level of care, which is usually due to a decline. We can at least try to keep them there and keep them more independent longer. And people like Susan are your go-to for that. So Susan, thank you so much for your time. This was a fantastic conversation.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. My pleasure. You can come on anytime. I would love to chat. Anytime you want to. We always have a great conversation.
It's always fun to catch up again.
Yes, always is. Thank you everybody for listening and watching. And until next time, go make it a great week. Bye.